Psychological first aid refers to the basic building blocks of good mental health. There's always 5 things that we like to include: good sleep, exercise, nutrition, stress management, and healthy relationships. Obviously, a diagnosis of cancer affects your physical health as well as your mental health, and so does treatment.
Keep in mind there's more information on the Cancer Mindcare website under the Wellbeing section. Sleep is often the first thing that suffers during times of stress, so it's the first thing we should try to fix. If you're not sleeping well, everything else suffers.
The first thing I always think you should do is build some routines. So try to go to bed at the same time, try and wake up at the same time. It doesn't really matter what pattern you get, but just get a pattern that suits you and stick to it. And then after that, get your room right. So a dark room, a quiet room, make sure the temperature's correct. Everything that suits you, that you like to do to sleep, try and build that into your room.
Avoid things that stimulate you, like caffeine and cigarettes. And it's also worthwhile thinking about the pros and cons of alcohol. While it might relax you, it can also wear off in the middle of the night, disrupting you and leaving you feeling more tired in the morning.
Yeah, and then the final thing to do is relax your mind before you go to sleep. So whatever suits you again, either read a book or do some meditation, but try and get yourself into a relaxed state. Physical exercise is the easiest and cheapest way to improve your mental health. Exercise has been shown to improve anxiety and depression, but it's important to find something that suits both your personality and your style and your cancer and your cancer treatment. It can be anything from strong exercise like going to the gym or milder stuff that fits in with how you're feeling at the time.
Exercise doesn't have to be strenuous. You can do things like yoga or Pilates, and these have the added benefit of having a meditative quality. The natural response to stress is to either overeat, like comfort eating, or undereat, so loss of appetite, despite lots of evidence that suggests that good nutrition reduces anxiety and depression.
It's even more important during cancer, obviously, because cancer and cancer treatment affects what you eat and affects the way your body consumes energy. So it's super important to be proactive, think about it. You will probably be asked to see a dietitian at some stage during your cancer. But whilst you're being proactive and thinking about it, still keep all the good bits that you normally do, the social elements of eating with friends and enjoying the way you eat and consume food.
And make sure you're eating not only food that's healthy, but food that you enjoy as well. Sometimes we can't remove the stress of being sick, but we can do things to minimise the impact of worry.
There's 2 key tips we always talk about. The first is learning to relax, and the second is learning to turn the stress into bite-sized pieces. When it comes to relaxing, meditation's the most obvious thing, but also there's lots of relaxation apps. I always like to remind people that the main thing you've got to do is practice. It doesn't come naturally to everyone, and most of us have to do it at least 2 or 3 times a day for a few weeks before we get really good at it.
The second thing we can do is to have a look at the stress and break it down into bite-sized pieces. So that involves making a list, thinking about the possible actions we could take and the pros and cons of each.
It's also important to know there's a whole lot of extra information with tips and tricks on the website under stress management. Great relationships are probably the best way to prevent stress and maintain good mental health. During a time like cancer, everything changes. People react differently, you react differently. Think about the relationships you've had in the past that have nurtured you and maintained you, and think about turning back to those people and making contact and using those people to help you get through this difficult time.
You can also pull back a little bit from relationships that upset or distress you. It doesn't have to be permanent. It can just be short term while you're going through a tough time. It's that idea of putting on your own oxygen mask first before helping others.
I think it's also really good to be proactive. A lot of people just take it for granted what's happening around them when they've got cancer. But if you proactively think about your relationships, which are the good ones, which ones aren't working, try and fix the ones that aren't working. If you take a proactive approach, you'll benefit in the long run. Think about the relationships that are working and maintain them. Think about the relationships that aren't working and look at ways to improve those relationships.